April 1st, the carbon tax is going up, which means Canadians are just getting poorer. But you know who's getting richer? MPs in a couple of different ways. Now, joining me now is Franco Terrazzano from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation to discuss just that. The couple of different ways that MPs are going to get richer and outgoing MPs are going to get richer too. Franco, thanks for joining me. First of all, let's talk about the carbon tax because I have to. You guys are the Canadian Taxpayers Federation.
Yes.
Tell us how much poorer we're all going to be come April 1st.
Yeah, the government, courtesy of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, is about to make your life more expensive. You're going to be paying, after the hike, 17 cents a liter of gas and carbon tax, 21 cents per liter of diesel, and 15 cents per cubic meter of natural gas. So not only is it making things more expensive, it's making the necessities of living in Canada more expensive. It'll make it more expensive for you to fuel up your car to get to work. It'll make it more expensive for you to heat your home during the winter months. And of course, it'll make it more expensive for you to put food on your family's table. And folks, don't buy the government's spin about the rebates. Nay, nay. The parliamentary budget officer shows that the carbon tax will cost the average family up to $900 more a year than what they get back in rebates.
Yeah, that's the big line that the Liberals really hammer home on this is they want us to believe, which I think if you said this in the private sector, you might get arrested for trying to sell people on a Ponzi scheme. But if you give them money and they somehow cycle it through the very expensive hands of 100 bureaucrats, somehow along the way, without creating or doing anything, they will give you more money back in return. Sounds illegal. Sounds like a pyramid scheme.
Well, Sheila, let's just think about it for, longer than 2 seconds. First of all, it costs about $200 million just to have those bureaucrats administering the carbon tax. But not only that, the government charges its sales tax on top of the carbon tax. Okay, so that tax on tax is costing taxpayers like $500 million. Okay, so let's think about it. There is no way for a government to impose a carbon tax, charge its sales tax on top of its carbon tax, skim hundreds of millions of dollars off the top to pay for bureaucrats to administer the carbon tax, and then somehow make people better off with rebates. I mean, it's complete magic math, but the good news here is that Canadians aren't buying the spin, right? Like, look around, the vast majority of Canadians in every province and every demographic are against the upcoming carbon tax hike. And folks, like 7 of 10 provincial premiers are also publicly calling on the Trudeau government to cancel its carbon tax hike, including the lone Liberal provincial premier in Newfoundland and Labrador, Andrew Furey.
Yeah, and I've seen Abacus data polling that even for young people, like the millennials and even Gen Zs, their number one priority at the ballot box is affordability. They don't think they're ever going to be able to afford the middle-class things that their parents have. It's not climate change anymore. And I think the Liberals are going to be mugged by reality at the polls in 2025.
Well, Sheila, let's talk about that, because even if you really, really care about the environment, I think every Canadian really does care about the environment. But more and more Canadians are saying, wait, hold on a second. This carbon tax doesn't help the environment. Okay, let me give you 2 reasons why. Well, number one, fueling up your car with gasoline, fueling up the big rig with diesel, using natural gas and propane on a farm, making sure you can heat your home, those are necessities for countless Canadians, right? So instead of taking your unicorn to work, the carbon tax just means that people have less money in their budgets for other necessities of life, like funding your kids' university or college education. But number 2 is Canada only makes up 1.5% of global emissions. And about 3/4 of countries don't even have a national carbon tax. You know, Sheila, I know Canadians love watching the circus that is U.S. politics. Well, you know what Canadians won't see in the presidential election? They won't see either Democrat nominee Joe Biden or Republican nominee Donald Trump. They won't see either supporting a carbon tax. So a carbon tax in Canada just makes life here more expensive, and it doesn't reduce emissions in places like China, India, Russia, or the United States.
Right. And if the Liberals truly cared about carbon emissions, they wouldn't be exempting one of the more carbon-intensive forms of home heating, as in home heating oil. they've exempted that from the carbon tax while punishing people who use the cleaner burning natural gas, particularly out here on the prairies.
Well, the issue with the carbon tax carve-out is twofold. I mean, number one, I'm happy that some Canadians are getting some relief, right? Yeah. My big problem is that all Canadians should be getting relief, right? That's the one issue is that Trudeau took the carbon tax off of furnace oil for 3 years and then left 97% of Canadians out in the cold. But the second issue is that Trudeau just admitted that the carbon tax does make life more expensive. Otherwise, why would he have done the carve out in the first place?
Right, exactly. Now, moving on to the other bad thing I think that is happening on April 1st, that's the MPs getting a raise. I don't think they're doing a very good job. I think if they worked in the private sector, most of them would be fired for their ineptitude, but they are all getting a raise while Canadians are getting poorer thanks to their policies. Tell us about that.
And Sheila, you're in the majority. Other Canadians, the vast majority of Canadians also don't think that politicians should be getting a raise. We just released some polling from Leger that shows that 80% of Canadians are against the upcoming pay raise. Okay, so in a democracy, who's the boss? Canadian taxpayers. That's how it's supposed to work, right? Well, if the boss doesn't think you deserve a raise, in the real world, you ain't getting a raise, right? But MPs are going to rubber stamp another raise anyways, even though the vast majority of Canadians don't think they deserve one. And here are the numbers, okay? So the raise this year will range between an extra $8,100 for a backbencher to an extra $16,200 for the Right Honourable Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. So after the raise, here's the salaries, okay? After the raise, a backbench member of Parliament, along with collecting dust in the House of Commons, will be collecting a salary of about $202,000. A minister like Freeland or Guilbeault, their annual salary will be just shy of $300,000. Now, Sheila, I don't understand why a finance minister would get a raise when they could even balance the budget of a lemonade stand, but maybe that's a conversation later down the road. And the Prime Minister's salary after the raise will be about $405,000.